Hi, and welcome back to Cello from the Beginning. Well, you've learned how to hold the bow. You've got your good bow grip with your pinky here, and the first joint of your first finger here, and your gently curved thumb here with the tip pressing into that little V between the stick and the frog. And you're not holding it too hard, not holding it too lightly, just a comfortable grip. So now we're going to take that bow with our bow grip, we're going to set it on the D string. We're not going to play, I'm just going to set it there so I can show you some things about your arm. So first of all, I want you to notice that my bow is rolled slightly towards me. This is what it looks like if I have the bow at a right angle to the string, right? Where the stick is at a right angle. We don't actually have to play this way because if you notice, the hair flexes and will stay in contact. So we take this bow and we roll it slightly towards us. Or if you're coming from here with your bow grip, you're just setting it down and letting it roll comfortably towards you. Not flat like that, but just angled back this way. That's a general rule on string instruments, that the bow rolls towards the scrolls. If you're playing violin, the scroll is here, it rolls away from you. Cello, scroll is here, so it rolls towards you. So setting it on the D, and just set it here at kind of the first third. I want you to notice something about my right arm, shoulder, elbow, wrist. Everything here is relaxed. The shoulder is relaxed, elbow is relaxed, the wrist is up because I'm close to the frog. Here's what we don't want to see. Hunching the shoulder. We especially don't want to see elbow up like this. Lots of times, a beginner move that people will do is put that bow on the string and they reach around like that and the elbow is way up and they're trying to push down into the string. We don't have to do it. In fact, it's counterproductive. Instead, we relax this and feel the weight of the arm. Just the arm weight digging into the string. So you can actually just try that. Just put the bow on there and feel the weight of your arm and the string holding up the weight of your arm and the bow. And you can feel how much pressure you've got there before we even move or make a sound. Now we'll have to adjust this as we bow out to the tip and come back to the frog. But for just starting out, just resting it there on the D string and feeling that arm weight. So shoulders relaxed, elbows down, wrist is up, bow is rolled slightly towards me. Now, the way to move the bow on the string, we have two directions. We have what's called a down bow, which is moving away from the frog towards the tip. We have an up bow, which is moving from the tip towards the frog. Our goal is for that bow to be nice and straight as we bow, not doing this kind of thing, and also not moving up and down. Let's talk about where we're going to play. I know you want to make a sound, but we got to get through a couple things first. So, for playing in first position, this is a good place to start. The bow is resting about halfway between the end of the fingerboard and the bridge on the D string. If we get too close to the bridge, we're going to get a very harsh, almost electric sound. If we get over the fingerboard, the string is going to collapse and we're going to have a hard time playing only one string. So we just rest that bow right here. And then we move to the right for a down bow. We move to the left for an up bow. Down bow. Up bow. Now before we start our exercises, I want to say something here. The very first time you make a sound with the bow, it's not going to sound very good. It's going to sound pretty bad. If you know what a cello should sound like, you're a fan of the cello, you listen to the cello, you might be very disappointed with how you sound. That's okay. You're not going to sound like somebody who's been using the bow for 10 years. You're going to sound like somebody who's using the bow for 1 second. And then you're going to sound like somebody who's been using the bow for a minute, and then a day, and then a week, and then a month. It's going to keep getting better and better and better. So don't be put off. Don't get upset or disappointed by the tone that you get in this very, very beginning of using the bow. You may get scratch, you may get airy, a lot of different things, and we'll talk about all of those as we move on and how to conquer those problems. I just want you to put the bow on the string, move it, and make a sound. And don't be discouraged, because pretty soon you'll be that person who's been using the bow for a lot longer than 1 second. So here we go. Bow grip. Setting it on the D string. I'm going to set it a little bit away from my hand. We can play all the way down to here, but for right now we're going to set it more in about the first third. We're going to make some short bow strokes. So we won't try to use the whole bow. We'll go like this. Just back and forth on the D, gentle. Some important things to notice. Elbow is relaxed. The wrist can bend as I bow down and up. If my wrist is locked and I try to bow down, I'm going to get this. You can get away with that if you're doing this. But as soon as you try to use more than a few inches of bow, it's going to start to go crooked. So what we want, ideally, is a nice straight bow, side to side, and then also not sliding up and down. But wherever we start, that's where we want to stick. So putting that bow again, relaxing everything on the D string. Let's try 4 quarter notes. 1, 2, ready, and D, 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 D. Good? How'd you do? Let's try it again. Ready, and D, 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 D. 1, 2, ready, and D, 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 D. One more time, and ready, and D, 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 D. Now, getting a good sound, getting any sound really, or the proper sound on the cello, we're going to balance 3 things. We're going to balance the bow pressure, how hard I'm pushing, if at all, the bow speed, how fast I'm going side to side, and the bow, really the location to some degree. But pressure and speed are the 2 big ones. Let me show you what I mean by that. Let's say I use a lot of pressure, but I move the bow very slowly. I'm pressing so hard and moving so slow that the string can't get vibrating. So that's a case where for that bow speed, I need a lot less pressure. But what happens if I do the reverse? Instead of using, let's say instead of using a lot of bow pressure and not much speed, I use a lot of speed and no pressure. You can hear that isn't vibrating the string properly either. This way, it's crunching. This way, it's airy. I'm not getting into the string. I'm not getting a full vibration. This typically happens if I try to use too much bow for a particular length of note, especially with not enough pressure. So I can fix this one of 2 ways. I can use less bow with the same amount of pressure, or I can keep using that great big bow and try to use a lot of pressure. That's not a very nice sound, but there are certain occasions that might call for that if you're really having to play something very loud, in a kind of ugly fashion. But we're really looking to balance pressure and speed. So for our quarter notes here, at this speed that we're going, we don't need a lot of bow. So not too much bow and a little bit of pressure that I'm using, again, just my arm weight. Now what happens if we try to do a long bow? How do we adjust to play at the tip? Well, let me actually just start at the tip and show you how my hand and arm looks different. You can see now my wrist is bent. My elbow has come up a little bit, so it was down here. It's come up, just flexed, and in order to get some sound here, I'm going to lean in to my first finger. It's almost a motion like trying to open a doorknob, but imagine the doorknob is stuck. Or we were doing windshield wipers, but something gets in the way. But I keep trying to move it that way. You should feel that pressure here as I try to rotate the hand, but the string is in the way. This is actually a great, I'm going to see if I can get close so you can watch my bow collapse. There you can see the bow collapsing as I lean in. So that's pressure at the tip. We'll go over this again more later on as we really get into using long bows, but this is a good exercise. Is to just sit out here at the tip and flex and see if you can curve that bow, make it dip without moving anything but trying to open that doorknob. All right, so let's go back to our basic exercise on the D string here. So one more time, and then we're going to try the A. 1, 2, D string. All right, now to play the A string, I've got to pivot that bow like a seesaw. So I pivot from the D to the A. Just try that. You can even look down the string and see it, pivoting from the D to the A. What does that involve? All of this rotates slightly. I'm not raising the shoulder, I'm not hunching it, but I'm allowing it to rotate so that I can get to that A string. Let's try that A string. 1, 2, A string. The A string is thinner, so it can take a little less pressure for the same amount of bow speed. Likewise, as we move to the lower strings, we'll need a little more pressure for the same amount of bow speed. So D is, that's why we start with the D, because it's an easy one to get going on. That's a great exercise right there. 4 on the D, 4 on the A, 4 on the D, 4 on the A, because you have to do that pivot and from the D to the A. It's very important that we do that pivot between the bow change. Practice that. A, stop, pivot, D, stop, pivot, A, stop, pivot, D, stop, pivot, A. And then we just shorten the stop until pretty soon we're not stopping. So these are the exercises I recommend for this open D and open A. First, single string bowing. Just practicing those quarters on the D. Just bowing away. Then, on the A. Remember to let your wrist bend. Then, groups of 4. D, A, D, A. Then we're going to shorten that to groups of 2. D, A, D, A, D, A, D, A. All right, and when you're really feeling good about that, when you don't have, if your pivot is not working at the right time, let me show you what you're going to hear. You can hear I'm getting an extra bit of the string before I get the next note. It's like D, 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 A. We want to get rid of that. That's what we can practice stopping. Stop, pivot, stop, pivot, stop, pivot, stop, pivot, stop, pivot. You keep doing that and then shorten the time that you're stopping. But once we get that going well, then you can slow down a little bit. We eventually want to get to this. Don't feel like you have to do that exercise the first day. Start with those groups of 4, then to the groups of 2 with the pause to do the pivot, then tightening that up, and then when you're feeling confident and good, then on that groups of 2, then move on to the groups of 1, and start with the pause. D, pause, pivot, A, pause, pivot, D, pause, pivot, A, pause, pivot. Then smoother. All of these are going to be great exercises. Now you notice we didn't do anything on the G and C because they're significantly harder to get going in my opinion. But we'll get to bowing on those before too long. But for right now we're going to be working mostly on the D and A when we start adding our fingered notes back in with the bow. So let's get comfortable in those 2 positions, bowing on the D, bowing on the A. By the way, if you get this, if you get 2 strings, it means that you are not far enough over onto the string that you want to be. So if you're trying to play the A and you're getting the D, it means you got to come further around. If you're trying to play the D, you got to come further this way. All right, that's bowing on the open strings. Practice hard. This is really important foundational stuff. If you get these open strings on the A and D comfortable and starting to sound pretty good, bearing in mind again that we just started bowing, but mostly comfortable. If you get comfortable with this bow movement, holding the bow, moving the bow, this will be very awkward at first. Your body won't feel right. It'll feel strange. Every minute that you do it, every hour that you do it, every day that you do it, it's going to get that much easier and that much more comfortable and that much more natural, because that's ultimately what we're aiming for, is to make this very strange and awkward instrument and all these strange things that we're doing just feel very natural and fluid. But everybody starts from the same place. everybody's a beginner. Everybody starts not knowing how to adjust pressure, not knowing how to adjust speed. We all have to go through this. So don't be too hard on yourself. Just work and be patient, and before long, you'll be sounding great. We'll see you next time.